Welcome everyone to the Blue Earth County Board of Commissioners meeting for July 14th, 2020. We are going to start with our Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Start with the agenda review, Bob.
There are no changes to the agenda today.
I'll move the agenda. Langhammer?
Second. Seconds.
We got a motion, we got a second. Any discussion? Jesse, could you call the roll, please?
Commissioner People,
Aye.
Commissioner Purvis,
Aye.
Commissioner Brunter,
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer,
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg.
Aye. We will go with the homework starts with home program with Judd.
Morning, Judd. Hi, everybody.
Good morning.
Take it away.
Pardon?
Take it away.
Okay, I will. So I think most of you know me. I'm Judge Schultz with Minnesota Valley Action Council, the housing director there. I have the fortunate experience to work with Kip on our board. I said fortunate. Anyways, what I'm bringing to you today is a resolution for the Homework Starts with Home program. This is actually, this program is targeted homeless prevention funds to families with school-age children or youth of school age that have housing instability. So it's run just like that Family Homeless Assistance Prevention and Assistance Program, which we come to you every 3 years to sign a resolution for that, just indicating that you basically support that. This is the same thing. So it's part of the due diligence process to get the grant through Minnesota Housing. There's a group of us that applied for it. Three Rivers, our sister agency to the east, is the lead applicant, and we are our MVAC is a sub-grantee. And these funds are targeting the Rochester, Owatonna, and Mankato school districts. So it's sort of our pilot to make sure that we understand it and we can run it. It was a very competitive grant. There were a number of applicants, and they only funded 4, and we were one of them. So the program's been around. I think this is either the second or third funding round. So we were glad to get in on it. We chose these districts to target because we knew something about those districts that are the larger ones in our area. We know they have probably homeless or families that suffer near homelessness, so we thought it would be a good activity to target those districts to start with. We'd asked for 1.5 million, and we got just a little under 9 million. And MVAC's portion to work with the Mankato School District is a little under 3 million on that. So essentially, by signing the resolution, and then there's also a memo of understanding that the Three Rivers has sent to Bob to sign. It's just that essentially we want to know that the county supports this effort of trying to help, once again, just homeless populations, but in this case specifically, families with school-age children or youth of school age that are at risk of being homeless. What the county's role in this basically is a referral system. So you have staff that sit in on MVAC's advisory committee for the Family Homeless Prevention and Assistance Program, and they also sit on the housing or homeless response teams in each county. And so that would be our way of working with county staff that are working with homeless populations so that they know about the program so they can make those referrals. This grant actually provides us money to staff a person that will be sitting in school district offices and working very closely with school social workers, and that's basically how most of the referrals will come through. So it's a nice resource. It's extra money to help specifically those families so that we can use the other homeless prevention funds on other families. So it's just another tool in the toolbox to help that population, and we're excited that we were able to be a part of an application that got funded. Any questions?
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
how many, do you recall, maybe you don't know exactly in the past, how many? I know from Partners for Affordable Housing, there's more kids that are homeless that are in school than quite a bit considering the community size, but.
Yeah, it's And I think the reason they do it is they recognize the fact that housing instability for young children leads to not just a school performance issue, but other behavioral issues. So if we can stabilize that housing, the grant was written based on information that was provided by the school district for the number of families that they know at this time that are homeless. And so I think it targets about 30-some households a year to assist.
Okay, so I thought that was about that figure, but, thank you.
Great.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Would this also be for people who are on the cusp of becoming homeless?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's either to prevent homelessness or for families that are actually homeless, we can
Yeah,
have
both.
funds to do that. And then depending on their situation, if they're that homeless family, that's called rapid rehousing funds or the portion of this project that you can actually assist them for a number of months to make sure they're stable.
Good.
So,
Have you noticed in the last 3 months with the whole COVID issues and the job issues that we've had more homeless or less homeless?
well, that's the million-dollar question these days amongst the entire network. We haven't really. We've seen a slight increase in folks that have contacted us regarding homelessness that we can tie to the whole pandemic. I think we checked a 3-month period, March, April, May, and we probably had about 250 households that specifically cited the fact of the pandemic that they're homeless. But we haven't seen the big push. And when you talk to the network, everybody pretty much feels that that's going to happen when the executive order is up. Regarding moratorium on evictions, which was just extended another 30 days. And actually, I believe Minnesota Housing is going to, or at the governor's press conference today, he's going to announce some money out of the federal COVID funds that the state got targeted specifically to homeless prevention to address that issue. So we haven't seen the big uptick. I think when we have coordinator conference calls regarding the homeless programs across the state, I think the metro area has seen a huge increase in volume already, but depending on where you are in the state, you just haven't seen it. We know they're out there. We know once that moratorium is done, we're going to have a number of people knocking on our door.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we're looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, well, Will had a
Question.
comment first.
Just had a quick question. How much is funded to Blue Earth County?
to the Mankato School District is about a little less than $300,000. And then for the regular Family Homeless Prevention and Assistance Program that MVAC runs in the 9 counties, it's a little over $1 million for the 3 years. So.
Mr. Chair, I'll move the resolution.
Second?
We have a motion, we have a second. Any more discussion?
Thank you, Jed. You do a great job at MVAC also. You do a good report, and the program you run is a very needed program here in Blue Earth County, so thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're pretty lucky we have MVAC here in Mankato, and the job you do in the region. It's really, really helpful to the folks that are in need, so thank you very much.
Well, we appreciate the county's support, so thank you very much.
If there's no other discussion, Jesse, could you call a roll?
Commissioner People,
Aye.
Commissioner Purvis.
Aye.
Commissioner Brunder.
Aye.
Commissioner Landcamer.
Aye.
Chair Stuenberg.
Aye. Thank you very much,
Thanks,
Judd.
Judd.
Have a
Good
great
seeing you.
day.
Everybody?
Thanks, Judd.
See you Monday.
Thank you.
right? Monday?
Monday. Yeah, I'm actually in the office now.
Oh, are you? Good.
Too much stuff I have to do, I have to be in the office.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And we're gonna jump to Public Works. Ryan?
Morning, Commissioners.
Good
Right,
morning, Ryan.
Well, I have a relatively full agenda today, so I'll try to keep it moving along, but I'll be happy to answer questions at any juncture as we go through. Our first action item for today is consideration of the County State Highway 27 Great River Energy relocation agreement. This is for relocation of a 69 kilovolt electrical transmission line along the reconstruction of County State Highway 27 from US Highway 14 to the north limits of County State Highway 2. This involves relocation of about 15 poles and adjustments of several other poles. Our staff has worked very closely with Great River Energy, which is a conglomerate of Benco Electric and other electrical producers to provide their primary transmission lines. The amount is fairly high within the agreement still. These lines are very expensive to relocate, but we've worked very diligently to lower the total amount by about $300,000 through some redesign and use of ditch blocks to reduce the cut at existing poles. So trying to minimize how many poles we relocate via the agreement. The agreement as it stands now is, I think, very cautiously estimated at $630,571 for relocation along the project limits. I know it's a big bite. However, I guess I would state that this is eligible for our county stated highway and road reconstruction costs, and this is part of a much larger $6+ million project. So we do budget for these types of things on projects. This is a little excessive beyond what we would normally pay for utility relocations, but it's also not. On Cassatt 12, for example, on some of the stages of that, we had millions of dollars of utility relocations for pipelines or larger transmission poles. You get into the 345 kilovolt poles, and they're about $200,000 a pop to move each pole. So, with that, I would take any questions or recommend approval of the relocation agreement.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just for point of order, could we do all these in one, have them report on it like we do human services, or do we have to go through and do each one of them and approve them one at a time? We do human services as a group.
If there's, and what I'll say, if there's anyone here that would like to pull one out to do separately, is there anyone on the council that would like to pull one of these action items out?
I mean, is that acceptable? I guess I'm just asking the question.
You know, I guess, I believe it's acceptable. My issue I might have is with right-of-way acquisition.
Okay.
Those authorities might be best to be done individually.
Well, let's do everything but the right-of-way acquisitions.
Well, how about we just do everything, let's do everything right, like we would normally, and then maybe we can look into it for next month. I should have brought this up before the meeting, but I was just sitting here looking at this long list thinking, a roll call vote after every one's gonna get cumbersome, but we'll deal with it today, but maybe we can just do a little research on that. Sorry about that, Mr. Chair.
That's good.
All right.
But I don't have any questions on the item, except thanks for all the hard work.
I might change the roll call vote, because I believe unless we have a negative vote, if we all say aye or we all say nay and nobody does something different, it should be a unanimous vote. So
You wouldn't need a roll call?
So I'm not certain a roll call vote is necessary as long as it's unanimous. If it's not unanimous, then we need to change it up. But go ahead and we'll do this one at a time.
Part of the roll call is tied to the remote meetings, but the fact that we're all in this room, you might be able to crack that.
That's exactly what I was saying. As long as, if there is a negative vote or a positive vote to a bunch of negative votes, then then we should do roll call. Otherwise, if it's unanimous one way or the other, I believe we could just go ahead and vote that way. But I believe we need a motion to this.
I'll move approval. Brunder?
People second.
We have a motion and a second. Any
Mr. Chair.
discussion?
Just a question, and it's probably redundant, but when they put up these things, is there a way they can move them back farther so they're not going to continue to hit our roads and we have to move them?
Very good question. And these were in private easement, obviously, which is why we are having to pay to relocate them. We had two alternatives with the relocation. We do have a county ordinance now that requires that they be set back 130 feet from center line of the highway.
Okay.
So all new ones, with the exception, I think greater than 69 kilovolt, is I believe the threshold per the ordinance, where then they have to go through the Public Utilities Commission, and then they kind of get authority from on high to go at the edge of the right of way again. However, we can restrain, but this is a very old line that I think predated the ordinance.
I figured this did. I just wondered, because I remember
There is a
passing the
mechanism in
ordinance.
place, though. That is a very good point.
Yeah.
One other point of order or comment that I should probably make before the vote is that we are relocating many of these poles to be within the new right-of-way for the project limits. And part of the agreement that we have, and we don't foresee any need to ever relocate them again in the foreseeable future, but that if those specific poles, if the county ever asks for them to be relocated again, we'll be on the hook the second time for those specific poles, because typically they want to be in their own easement so that they don't have to relocate like this. And if they were there only by permit, they would have to relocate at their own expense. So as a bit of a safeguard, we are going to enter into a relocation agreement for them to go within the right of way. The other potential option was that they went 10 feet outside of the right of way. However, because of the impacts to the landowners adjacent to the project, we believed it's best to keep them in the right of way, because they have to have a line swing out easement where they will clear cut trees for where the line will swing when the wind blows. So in order to preserve people's homesteads and buffer areas and trees, et cetera, we thought best to keep them in the public right of way. And again, no foreseeable need to ever relocate these poles again in the span of my career.
All right. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, the same? A unanimous vote for it. Thank you.
Thank you. The second action item is consideration of the state of Minnesota lighting agreement for the intersection lighting at Minnesota Highway 68 with County State Highways 11 and 42. MnDOT will pay for the engineering, the construction, installation of the electrical intersection lighting. We will be responsible for the monthly electricity costs and ongoing maintenance. This is a common agreement. These are two fairly crash-prone, more dangerous intersections identified in our safety improvement plan. So I would certainly recommend that we move forward with this agreement.
Purvis moves approval.
Brunder will second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Yes.
Mr. Chair, what does that usually run a month?
Like $30.
Okay, I was just kind of curious.
Yep.
I think it's a good safety thing.
Yeah, and with the LEDs, we've seen it come down from about 50 to 60 to about 20 to 30.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's a great safety item. I tell you, when that intersection's lit up, it makes a huge difference.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? That passes unanimous.
Okay. Within that packet, as MnDOT requires, was a resolution to enter into MnDOT agreement number 103-693-6963. That was included in the packet. I would also recommend approval of that resolution.
What does that resolution say?
That the county board authorizes the chair and county administrator to enter into this agreement.
All right.
Bit redundant.
Brunder will move.
Ms. People will second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Passes.
Okay. Action item number 4 is, and the next 4 resolutions will be very similar, is for right-of-way acquisition for box culvert replacements on County State Aid Highway number 2. This is at 2 locations over Judicial Ditch number 1. This is for routine box culvert and small bridge work. And as we're preparing a batch of these shovel-ready projects to be on the shelf for funding availability, we will also need to acquire minor pieces of right-of-way to facilitate longer box culverts, better in-slopes, et cetera.
Okay.
So the first one is for County State Aid Highway number 2. Again, I would recommend approval of that resolution for right-of-way acquisition authority.
Brunder will move approval.
People will second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just a question. Whereabouts is that judicial ditch?
That's a good question. I think that is a little bit farther east of 20.
Or by the sewer somewhere, because we got a
Closer to
meeting
the
this
sewer
afternoon
county
on it.
line.
Okay, I was just
Yeah.
curious,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. it's close
Okay,
to
thank
one.
you.
All right. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? That passes unanimously.
Thank you. The reason I hesitate is because we also have some on the West County line side of 2 that we also need to replace. County Road 157, replacing Bridge 90550 over County Ditch 96. This is approximately 0.2 miles south of Minnesota Highway 22 and 5.1 miles south of Mapleton. Again, replacement of a box culvert, but has a bridge number because of the width. This is a resolution authorizing the county engineer and county attorney to procure the necessary right-of-way, including eminent domain if needed.
I'll move approval. Langhammer?
Purvis seconds. Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? That passes.
Okay. Next one, same thing, County Road 174, culvert over County Ditch 88, approximately 3.5 miles east of Minnesota Highway 22 and 0.9 miles south of Cassatt 15.
People will move.
Langhammer seconds.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? That passes.
Okay. Last one of those, County Road 177, culvert over County Ditch 93, approximately 1.7 miles east of Minnesota Highway 22 and 4 miles north of Buford.
Brunder will move.
Purvis seconds. Got a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Approximately how much are these culverts?
So a single span box culvert project like this, generally speaking, is going to be $150,000 to $200,000 per crossing.
Plus the acquisition of the land?
Yeah, those are usually pretty minor amounts because we just need enough to extend the riprap energy dissipation basins out into the property, or maybe acquire a little strip because the culvert goes a little longer than the existing one.
All right. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? It passes.
Action item number 8 in your packet is a resolution authorizing the vacation of a portion of County Stated Highway 12 excess right-of-way. This is detailed on the subsequent map in the packet on the next page. There we go. So the gray hatch, you can see the County Stated Highway 12 alignment as it curves through the wood telemark parcel to the upper right. To the bottom left, going to the west, the Hoffman Road connection. And the northerly stretch is what we would call the old Carver Road, where you see the solid gray hatch. That's the old township road right-of-way that was assumed by Blue Earth County in, I think, about 2015. That is excess remnant parcels that are no longer necessary, so we would request going through the public notification process and then turning those back to the underlying landowners.
All right.
People will move the resolution. Do we have a resolution? Yeah.
Langhammer seconds.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion?
I
It's,
have
Go
some.
ahead.
I always think it's a good idea if we don't have any use for it to turn it back to the landowners. Making sure we never have any use for it though.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and as you can see with the
Alignment.
left where we connect to existing Carver Road, there's really no reason, and
Yeah.
it creates a small little unuseful parcel there in that little white box that's really going to be pretty difficult to develop. But now with this vacated back to the landowner, it gives them some additional options. And
So do we turn that land back into land ready, or, I mean?
so because it was previously Township Road had easement over it, it was still in theory owned by the underlying landowners. However, there was the highway easement over it that the county then assumed. So in the circumstance where we have easement only and not fee title, we can issue the notices to the public, put it in the official publication, and then after a period of time, release it back to the underlying landowners. If we own it fee title, we have to actually go through a more arduous process where we have to go about selling it.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, if, I don't think this is going to happen here, but the landowner doesn't have to take it if they don't want to, is that correct?
They can contend it.
Deny,
Yep,
yeah,
if they choose to do so.
okay.
Yep.
I'm assuming that never happens.
We have been coordinating this also with the county attorney's office on the project right of way.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? That one passes.
Okay. The next action item, last action item in your agenda is the 2019 annual report. I know in past years, the county board has requested that they do not receive a hard copy of the report. If I've stuck to that, if you would like a hard copy, please let me know and I will have our office get you one. So with that being said, I'm going to try to go through it fairly quickly because I'm sure you've all read it word for word. It's a thrilling document, number by number, and have it memorized.
We are doing that.
I may be being a little bit facetious.
Which page are we?
Yes. Just some highlights of the document. As we scroll through to the third page is right there, the certification with a summation of the total mileage, total construction allotments for regular municipal, total maintenance allotments. So again, this is a document that's necessary to report to the Minnesota Department of Transportation State Aid Division on how we utilize our state aid dollars. Yeah. The next page is the table of contents that'll help you navigate through the document a little bit better. The subsequent page is a list of mileage for our county state aid highway regular roads, 420 miles. County state aid highway municipal roads, 20.6. County roads, 302.4. And then summation of our regular construction, county road construction, and other township bridge projects. I'm going to jump ahead a few pages to page 2B. Right there. That's a verbal summary of the major work items that were completed in this year. So if you're going to read anything, I would say that may be the better item to read through. 2B of the paper.
We have about 722 miles, actually
740 or so.
42 miles of miles. How many township mile roads do we have in the county?
That's not, well, if it's in here.
I know that's not in here.
Not part of that. I think, I don't want to misquote you. I can look it up and email it to you after the fact if you'd like. I know we have the township reporting, we have the certification document at the end of every year.
I'm sure every township has the amount of miles.
Each township certifies their road mileage to the county so that when we distribute the township aid dollars, and I may come across it as I go through the document. I believe it's in here. I just am not 100. Well, table of contents might tell me.
But that's a pretty fair amount of miles.
Yes. Yep. I can get it to you if we don't come across it in here.
All right, thank you.
So summation of the projects and maintenance activities. There's a subsequent map following that document as well to help visualize where those projects are at in space. And quite a bit later, listed as page 17 of the document. I'm not sure if Bob will be able to find it easily, but is a summation of or a detailed breakout of each road and its subsequent centerline mileage for county state highways, county roads, both municipal and urban. So that's on page 17 through 17B1. They're quite a ways after this, Bob. Next year, have to put some quick links
It's
in.
82 of the packet.
82, thank you.
82 of the packet, if that's helpful.
There we go. Thank you.
Yep.
And then I'm going to jump quite a ways through the document. There's a significant level of detail on all of our project cost breakouts, assets listed, depreciation schedules, et cetera. I'm going to jump all the way to page what's listed as 24, and it's almost probably the 6th or 7th from the last page of this document. Yeah, up a couple. Right there, thank you. This is a 2019 source of funding that the county had received. So you can see his shares of federal dollars, state aid, maintenance, regular and municipal state aid, construction, regular and municipal, township bridge bonds, and turnback. That's heavily weighted with turnback dollars, some LRIP from the Cassatt 17 roundabout. local road and bridge money, other grants, and then miscellaneous funds. And I think the local option sales tax may be not listed directly. That's part of the local road and bridge, so that's why it's showing $10 million. The next page is an expense breakdown. As always, we are not top-heavy whatsoever. 2% of our total budget goes towards administration and 2% towards material services. The rest of it goes right back into the construction projects and maintenance equipment. So we're putting it all, nearly all of it back out there into the system. The subsequent page is a personal services breakdown for construction and maintenance, showing how funds are allocated around the department and what the labor costs are in respect to equipment and contracts and services and equipment materials. The next page is an expenditures bar chart. You can see that this 2019 was the largest year of expenditure ever for our department. I think we'll surpass that next year. So we keep growing. The subsequent page I think is very interesting. If you look at the 2019 funding trends as these dollars are all correlated back to a steady state dollar amount, you can really see a very significant increase since 2016 in our constant $1970 funding since the local option sales tax. So you can see the impact that that's made on the bottom bar chart, where we've had consistent funding, and it's been a significant increase to help us get those critical projects out the door. So with that, I would request approval of the annual report, or be more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Purvis moves approval.
Brunder will second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, I just got one question. Ryan, back on page 83 of our packet, or page 17A, where you have the breakdown of all of the miles and the roads.
Yes.
We got City of Eagle Lake with County Road 17 at 0.85. It just seems like it's not very long. Is it because part of it's Cassatt and not? Because if you go down to a little further and you got Eagle Lake with County Road 55, which is a shorter road. I don't know where you're starting and stopping, but that's 0.96, and County Road 17, which goes all the way through Eagle Lake, all the way out to the 4-lane highway, and that's only point.
It might just be the
What's in the city
alignment
limits.
within and where city limits are
Okay,
at.
all right,
because this
well,
is
that would
only
make
within
sense.
City limits.
Okay, well, that would make
Yes.
sense. Thank you.
All right. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? That does pass unanimously.
All right, thank you for all of that and your patience as we work through that busy list. We have some informational items for the county board. Construction projects update, and as always, please feel free to jump in with questions as we go through. County State Highway 1 from 9 to 90, the surcharge, we've placed the 4th lift. There are 3 lifts remaining to go, so we're also working on right-of-way acquisition for the subsequent project for the limits from 9 to 90. So Jack's transitioning to that as he wraps up 27, and we're also finalizing plans with the intent to bid the superlative project early this winter, and maybe even allow some of the specialty contractors to begin work if they would choose to do so over the course of the winter. So very excited to get that last leg done, knowing that we've got to allow for a settlement period of that surcharge, but we should be good to go for next year, pending any just radical movement in the surcharge, but we're not anticipating that. Cassatt 1 in Good Thunder from the west limits to Ewing Street. They are finishing the storm sewer on the west end. The road crew is beginning to rebuild from the east to the west, so they're starting to put things back together. They're only on the first block, but it's always good to see that they're starting to build instead of tear apart and dig up. And then the water main is done. There are some services that are remaining to be completed for water and sewer services to the individual homes. Cassatt 10 from East Vernon Center to County State Highway 1, Commissioner Purvis's neighborhood.
Yes.
The project's progressing very nicely. The south curve regrade is completed, return to gravel. The north curve regrade is underway. I I don't know, maybe it's the engineer in me, but I love going out on a job site and seeing the big scrapers and the discs and the sheep's foot moving. That's always a good sign of progress when they're all running at maximum capacity.
I've had a front row seat at that, and they are working hard at it.
Yeah, they're doing a nice job. It's gone, so knock on wood, fairly smoothly so far. Really tailored type of project for the skill set that our contractors have. The west end widening is progressing very well, and they're even talking at this point in time, pending any obviously weather delays or things like that, that they could be paving by late August. So we'd love to see that. The 2020 bituminous overlays, MPM will resume their work on Cassatt 6 and 112 on Monday to wrap those projects up. And the Cassatt 60 Stadium Road and Pole Road Roundabout, that's a City of Mankato led project, is also underway and moving forward well. We have planning project updates. Cassatt 27 from 17 to 2, all of the permits are approved as we've previously discussed. There are 4 right-of-way parcels remaining to obtain signatures on. So we're getting very close. You know, as a 6-mile project, there were a tremendous amount of landowners that Jack and Ryan met with, and they did a really good job of it given all of the constraints that COVID-19 put on them. That acquisition is very much relies on interpersonal communications and people skills, and as you all know, over the last 3 to 4 months of Zoom meetings, that's much harder to convey over the phone or when you're not in person with people. But they've soldiered and done a fantastic job for us. The plans were submitted to state aid for approval yesterday. We anticipate opening bids in mid-August, pending the state aid approval. So hoping to still get some work done out there this year, less than we had originally thought, but because of all of the moving pieces to this one, the majority of it will be completed next year, but it's going to be a great project when it's all said and done. County State Highway 16, the trail from Stadium to Pleasant. The plans are approved and we are advertising to open bids on August 12th. So the contractor will be able to start that this late summer, fall, and wrap it up by next spring. The 41 bridge replacement, southeast of Mankato by the Jevens Winery. We are opening bids tomorrow, awarding on July 25th with work to start in early August. Obviously, again, delayed because of COVID-related issues, approvals from state and federal aid, because we are having federal dollars on that project. So with that, the intent, and I think we've discussed it before, the intent is to, the contractor can either hit it really hard or maybe take their time. Regardless, they have a completion date of June of next year to have everything opened up to traffic. They have a minimal time period where they cross traffic over, so they either need to keep traffic on the old road and the old bridge while they build the new bridge and the new alignment in parallel, or before winter, they need to get traffic onto the new road alignment with at least a gravel surface and the new bridge. The 57 Riverfront, North Riverfront Drive, Roundabout Interchange, BMI submitted 60% plans for county, Mankato, and MnDOT review, so that's progressing fairly well. We did get legal opinion on the driveway relocation issue, and we are within our authority to relocate the driveway without further negotiation, so MnDOT also affirmed that, so that was a good step forward that the demands that were being placed that were excessive do not have to be met, and we are within our legal authority to provide adequate access. Cassatt 1 from 9 to 90, we talked about that, wrapping up, or really resuming right-of-way acquisition, plan approvals, and trying to get it out to bid relatively early. That will be a 2-year long project just with the amount of work. Again, I know people, patience is beginning to grow thin out there with respect to construction. However, I hope everybody understands the complexity of the work going on out there and some of the major geotechnical challenges that we've had with that project. Victory Drive, County State Highway 82 from Stadium to Hoffman. Bolton and Mink is finalizing their feasibility report and will begin moving forward to the 30% plans. The Cassatt 27 Eagle Lake water main replacement project, really not much to report on there. We've done some cost estimation as well as the city. We're looking at 2 different alternatives, or really it's kind of leaving it up to the city to an extent. They can either do trenchless replacement of the water main with a bunch of trenches for their services. In my experience, that's less than ideal because you have all these dips that develop and then they're gonna have to come back in years later and fix the pavement. Or full reconstruction where the county would prorate how much we pay, knowing that we still have a reasonable service life left on the road. So we would say pay a percentage of the total project cost based on how much service life remains in the road, because the road was reconstructed 35 years ago, and there's no real reason, you know, that we would do full reconstruction at this point. A pavement reclamation would be our baseline, and then we can negotiate with them from there. So 10 and 72 in Vernon Center, as you may know, that's been in our capital plan for quite some time. The city hopes to fully reconstruct those and replace all of the city utilities. They've been waiting on bonding money, so they are listed in the bonding bill, or they were previously listed in this year's version of the bonding bill, and remain hopeful that this special session will yield benefit for them. If not, I have spoken with the city engineer, and I believe the intent would be to push them back a couple of years until they can recoup and get the finances to cover their portion of the project. And then we would move the Eagle Lake and perhaps some other projects up in our construction program. So we should know within a week or two if that project's going to move forward. And then last but not least, the 44 intersection, south intersection of Minnesota Highway 60 and Madison Lake. MnDOT is still moving forward with that project. I sent a cooperative agreement to the city for their approval, documenting their 10% cost share for the intersection realignment. So that's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have, or I'll get out of your hair.
That looks great.
Gee, is it summer?
Can't
tell,
tell,
right?
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ryan.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Good report.
And we'll follow that up with our county attorney, Mr. McDermott.
Morning, Pat.
Morning, Pat.
Pat?
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, thank you. As usual, the report kind of speaks for itself. I'll just give you some updates on some additional information. At a meeting with court administration last week, we are over 2,000 mandatory court hearings behind. I have a meeting with the judges tomorrow to try to figure out how we're going to push all that through. It appears that at least through the end of the year, on Mondays and Thursdays, we will have a senior court judge available to that, so we'll be flipping things around a little bit. For example, you'll see that some of our misdemeanor numbers are down in the adult area in the arraignments. Well, of those 2,000 hearings, at least 700 of them are misdemeanor arraignments, because those were just pushed to the wayside through the entire part of this. I did share the information with you earlier last week that we did have our first jury trial in the district. Things seem to go well from my perspective, from the court's perspective. I think the state public defender's office had some issues, but that's up to the judges to decide that. Knowing that you have a full agenda today, I will just open it up to any questions, concerns, or comments which you may have.
Pat, could you explain misdemeanor arrangements?
Misdemeanor arraignment is essentially if somebody's issued a traffic citation and it's a mandatory court appearance, or if there is a complaint summons and it is a mandatory court appearance, they simply can't walk into court administration and pay a fine and leave, then they have to appear in front of the judge. And so we always try to go down to arraignment court, which is typically held on Thursdays, and then see if we can work out a resolution to those cases, so then we don't have to open a file in our office. So we typically, Thursday mornings, under normal circumstances, would have 3 attorneys in the hallway trying to settle cases.
Okay. Would the judges be doing these arraignments virtually or
As
in
of right
person?
now, and that's part of the discussion for tomorrow, as of right now, what I know at least through the end of the month, they will be via Zoom, and then we're gonna talk about, are we gonna start bringing more and more people in? I do know, I did tell the court administrator that since it's Judge Walker that will be coming here on Mondays and Thursdays to start his calendar at 8 o'clock, because he's typically here by 6 o'clock anyway, so.
I was just curious because I know in the subcommittee on the courts that I'm serving on, there's been a lot of conversation that continuing with those Zoom meetings makes sense.
Well, in some respects, it does, but in some of the other areas, it's more cumbersome if you have a contested hearing or whatnot. If you're talking about, I couldn't agree more with the commitments of people that get housed in Sioux Falls or get housed in Fargo. You know, we've
Yep.
had to go as far as Iowa City with juveniles
Yep.
and youth. You know, those makes absolute sense because you would have, for example, you would have a deputy drive 10 hours to pick somebody up for a 5-minute hearing and then swap off, and another deputy would drive another 10 hours to take that person back.
Yeah.
So I think that through this pandemic and through what the courts have been working on, and even I know that the court administration has been working with the sheriff's office and trying to get virtual so they can just not bring them to the courtroom, bring them to a secure place in the jail. And there's always, you know, a wrench gets thrown in the cog somewhere, but that should be a reality coming in the near future, I would hope.
Yeah, I hope so too, and I know that's been the discussion that we've had is they're finding that it's a perfectly acceptable way to do some of these hearings.
Sure.
Virtually as opposed to having somebody come in. One other question, and I can't think of the right terminology right now, but it's the cattle call that you have where people are standing, waiting. Has that changed?
No, that would be, I mean, it has through.
It's a
doing it through-
bad term that I use.
Well, but that's what it's
Yeah.
always been referred to is
Yeah.
cattle call at 8:30 and cattle call at 1:30.
Yeah.
I mean, it started out years ago and just everybody shows up. That's typically what they would do with arraignment court on a normal day is you're supposed to be here at 8:15 and the first hearings start at 8:30 and whoever is first can just start going in front of the judge.
Yep.
They've been spacing those out if they're doing them virtually, and they will continue to do that, but they will load them up into a block scheduling sort of situation. We try to utilize block scheduling as much as we can. Then we only have one judge tied up, one prosecutor, and then various public defenders or defense attorneys, so.
I think there's some great things we can learn from this, and just trying to figure out how to do it all. So
Sure.
thank you for
Thank you.
explaining that.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, anything else?
I think we got it. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Yeah, thank you much, Pat.
Thanks.
All right. Lisa?
Morning,
Morning,
Lisa.
Lisa.
Good morning. How are you?
Great. So we have the normal after the audit adjustments that the board needs to approve. Anyone have any questions?
I will move the adjustments.
People will second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Maybe we should explain to the public what those adjustments were.
So the board needs to approve all the operating transfers that were done during the year. This is 2019 audit. Then we do a few budget adjustments throughout the year. And so those are also approved for the revenue and expenditures.
And we all know that as you go through a year, changes need to be made, and that's
Absolutely.
basically what this is.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep. All right. If
Thank-
there's no other discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against, the same? All right, that passes unanimously. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Lisa.
So we're gonna have our public health update. Is Phil out there?
We have half the team here, Mr.
We
Chair.
have, well, we have a good half the team here. Is,
If you'd like to jump to some administrative items, we could do that
should
while we
we,
wait.
why don't we do that until Phil shows up?
Okay.
Thank you, Kelly.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, the first item is the county board minutes for June 23rd.
I'll move the board minute. Second by Landcamer.
Got a motion and a second for the board minutes. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? That passes unanimously.
Next would be the bills, and we do have 3 weeks of bills to approve this time around.
People move the bills.
Brunder will second.
We've got a motion and a second on the bills. Any discussion? Any discussion? Without any discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against the same? We pass. Okay, human resources.
Well, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 7 in your packet is the Human Resources Department agenda. Just have informational items for the board today. We did have 2 resignations of custody officers in the jail, and so we have initiated recruitment to fill both a full-time and part-time position there. And then we've filled a position of a care coordinator within the public health unit within Human Services. So that was a position that was previously held by a care coordinator. Be happy to answer any questions the board might
We're
have.
still going through the same issues that we always have. And actually, I think every county in the state has with custody officers. They come, they go, and so many times custody officers are law enforcement students that find a job in their line of work and get the experience as a custody officer and then leave. So I know we've worked hard on this problem, and I think we will work hard, but that's a hard job to keep.
Well, it has been, and you're right, it is a problem that exists around the state. We certainly have made efforts to change our recruitments to try and get a workforce that sticks around a little longer. We've done, as part of our negotiations for the union contract, we built in some incentives to try and keep people around longer. And quite frankly, even though we're still seeing some turnover, it's better than it had been. Not as good as we'd like it to be, certainly.
Okay. All right. Our next one is the gambling permit.
Yes, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 8 in your packet is an application for an exempt permit from the Minnesota High School Cycling League. They would like to hold, I believe, some raffles at Mankato, I believe.
Yep. I'll move the.
Brunder will second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yep.
All right. All in favor say aye. Aye. Against the same? All right, that passes unanimously. And
Finance.
Phil's still not here. All right,
Financials.
we'll go to the financials.
All right, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, item number 9 in your packet is the financial status report for June 30th. This is halfway through our fiscal year, and so it is a good time to kind of do a snapshot of where we're at. Fortunately, our revenues are exceeding our expenditures at this point in time, so that is always a good thing. We did get quite a bit of state and federal money in compared to prior years at this point in time, and so that is some of the reason that we have a surplus at this point in time. I did double check. We had not yet received the CARES Act monies when this report was produced, so that was another infusion of federal funds that will make July look even a little bit better. So in terms of where we're at, our total revenues are at 44% at halfway through the year, and our expenditures are just under 37%. We'll see, obviously, those expenditure numbers increase as our summer road projects get into full swing. I did see just this last week about $2 million worth of construction bills go through. So we'll see that contract and fees line increase as the summer progresses. You've heard from Mike Stahlberger in the past about our collections on our local property taxes. We're actually a little bit above the halfway point there because we did have some prepayments. Tomorrow is the deadline for our health pandemic abatement extension that we provided some of our members in the community, and so we'll be watching that closely to see what kind of taxes ultimately get paid by that July 15th deadline. In terms of other line items, our personal services are a little bit under projection. That might be more the timing of payrolls and also impacted a little bit by some of the turnover and the hiring freezes that we've put in place. Overall, though, we're performing better than expected. We did budget a deficit at the end of the year. There's been a lot of changes that have occurred since this budget was approved, so it's a little harder to predict kind of where we're going to end up at the end of the year than we typically would find. In terms of the enterprise fund, there we see our expenditures exceeding our revenues by about $600,000. We have some land improvements and machinery that is very expensive that has been purchased this year. We hope in the second half of the year that we bring those revenue and expenses a little more in line, but it's not unusual to have a year where in the landfill that our expenditures might exceed our revenues just because of those large cell developments and equipment needs there. The second page then outlines our cash and investment balances. Our total available funds are 118 million, total county funds, not total available funds, pardon me. And that is up just a little bit from prior years at this point in time. And so you can see the various dedicated fund accounts there. And I certainly would be happy to answer any questions the board might have on the financial status report.
Any questions?
Not at this point.
Thank you very much. All right. Well, Phil, I think we've got time for you and Kelly now. So
I'm going to actually have Kelly come up first and give her report, and I'll be here if you have questions for either one of us, if that works.
All right.
Yeah. Morning, Kelly.
Good morning, Kelly. I think during this time of COVID and everything, and you being on the front lines, what we'd like to do is have a monthly report, and we really appreciate you taking your time out, and we know how busy you are. So thank you very much. I'll let you go.
Thank you for having me again, and I really appreciate the opportunity to do it on a monthly basis. Trying to narrow it down today was definitely a challenging task. Like, we could be here for an hour or more talking about the response. Excuse me. What really strikes me about COVID-19 and our response is it is just continuing to be a fast-paced, changing situation, daily, weekly. Just when we feel we've got our feet under us and our incident command chart is exactly where we need it, there's a little bit of a shift, and we have to shift with that. So my core word has been nimble. You need to be nimble and be able to change a direction fairly quickly. So starting on a national level, today there are 3,296,599 lab confirmed cases and 134,884 deaths as of this morning on the CDC website. This does not include cases that were clinically diagnosed when we were having challenges with shortages of testing supplies. There continue to be states such as Arizona, Florida, and Texas who are experiencing high rates on not only of tests, but of ICUs and hospital beds, and that's a lot of what our efforts are trying to prevent is that overwhelming of our healthcare system. There continues to be a debate on the national stage, which I'm sure you've all heard about, is there long-term immunity or longer-term immunity? They're still sorting through that. And vaccine continues to be predicted at 6 to 12 months. So that's what we've been hearing since the beginning of this, about 6 months ago. So I don't really expect any vaccine to be viable or available until 2021. I hope I am wrong on that. I would love to be proven wrong and we have a vaccine next month.
That's all you can do.
So,
Yeah.
moving on to the state level, as of this morning, and of course the numbers change at 11 o'clock every day. So we are, what time is it? We're close to the
10 o'clock.
change. In an hour, these numbers will change. On the state level, there's 42,772 lab confirmed cases and 1,504 deaths. ICU and hospitalizations continue either on a flat trend or a downward trend. So that certainly is good news for our healthcare partners. Department of Health continues to work on developing a regional model of contact tracing and contact investigation. Blue Earth County and Brown County, we represent the South Central part of the state in those planning efforts. Initially, they'd hoped they'd have that up and running by July. It's looking more like August or possibly early September, depending on how the planning goes over the next month or month and a half. It's complicated. MDH has shifted their ICS structure, their incident command structure, and added rows for like nursing home or skilled facilities, congregate care. So they are doing some of the same things that we are to continue managing the response. And they continue to publish a lot of the guidance and information we need to help our community. So we really appreciate the partnership with the state on that level. Regionally, of course, we continue to work with the South Central Healthcare Coalition. We have weekly calls, we share information, and of course the coalition includes local public health, hospitals, healthcare. We also have A&B and specialized transportation providers on that call now, as they are a critical part of our response. The coalition is going to be receiving funding very soon. They'll be coming out to counties and healthcare facilities to do an analysis, look at what are our strengths, what's going well, what's not going well, so that we have an opportunity to look at that with where we're at right now and make some shifts and changes to just be more efficient and more effective in our response moving forward. So we're looking forward to that. At the local level, we are working as efficiently as possible to continue to stay ahead or abreast of everything that's changing with COVID-19. As of 10 a.m. yesterday, we had 586 lab confirmed cases and 2 deaths in Blue Earth County. There are many, as I talked about, there's just so many areas to talk about with COVID-19, but one of the areas we focus in as local public health is the congregate care, including nursing home, customized living group homes, shelters, or other like treatment facilities or other congregate care facilities where people are in closer proximity with each other. We've provided everything from technical assistance to PPE so that they can continue providing their services safely. This really has been a partnership at the EOC with the city of Mankato to really get all of that PPE out. So that continues to be a really nice partnership and effective way of doing business. Good news, PPE has been pushed out for nursing home and customized livings through the state, so they are getting better supplies than they had probably the last time that I was here. A lot of that is getting pushed out through the coalition, so that's being managed by Eric Weller and that staff. Some of our shelters have set aside rooms for their service recipients, so we will be able to support them in that setting. Rather than moving them to a totally different setting. So again, we have kits. I should have brought pictures. We have like bags, kits, food kits, PPE kits, shelter kits that we can literally grab. So if I get a call on a Saturday, that's, let's say one of the shelters has a positive recipient or a COVID positive recipient, I can go into our cupboard and pull out what I need fairly quickly. So that's been good. We also provide essential services. Last time I was here, I believe we had about 5 residents. We have now served a total of 36 people with around 15 to 17 open at any given time. Those come in over the weekend as well. Highest or the most common things we hear is help getting groceries or they need groceries. And again, we have food shelf stable kits. I go in and I grab a couple of bags, and that's food for a person for a week. So we've got a really good system with that. Or I think on one of the rainiest mornings this last month, I picked up groceries for someone at Walmart and found out that If it's raining and thundering, they do not bring your groceries out to you. You have to go in and get them because there's a risk of lightning and their canopy is metal. So I was a little wet by the time I was done with that, but there was a family that got groceries, so it was all worth that. Just went and dried off a little later. So thermometers and cleaning supplies are other things we hear frequent requests for. I was utterly amazed at the number of people who do not have thermometers in their house. I just thought everybody would have thermometers, but that has been definitely something most households do not have. And we manage those requests over the weekend. Any questions on essential services? That's kind of a broad category. We continue to provide technical assistance to other community partners such as local businesses. They reach out to us. We talk with them. We try to balance that with not becoming their occupational health department, but providing technical assistance and making sure they have the information that they need, connecting them to the Department of Health or whoever else they need to talk to. We're also working with the Department of Health to respond to what we call clusters, and a cluster is just 3 people at a business or at a congregate care site that are diagnosed with COVID-19. So we do some prevention to mitigate and stop or slow the spread of that if we can do that. And then we're also working very hard on putting into place closed pod agreements. And what that pod is short for, or is an acronym for points of dispensing. So what that means is if there's a vaccine available, we are able to push out to Mayo as one of our people who has signed, or one of our agencies who signed the agreement. We can give them the vaccine. They can vaccinate all of their patients, their employees families, making vaccination a much more efficient venture. Be a little different. I think back to H1N1, which all of us were around for, and we had people in the hallway this far apart during H1N1. That wouldn't happen today. So any of those closed pod agreements we can complete. So we have them completed with Mayo, Mankato Clinic, School Sisters of Notre Dame, and there's one more, Mankato Clinic and Pastone Nursing Home. So we're working on actively on a couple of others. So that changes the face of our response in the future as well. Yeah. So just in closing, I'm going to stop there and pause for some more questions, but I'm certainly not alone in doing this. I know I'm the one standing here giving the update, but my staff is an absolutely integral part of this. This board is a part of this. Bill, Jesse. Jesse's been my lifeline more than a couple of times. To just be able to do this work, and I so appreciate your support.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions?
I have a question. I know they've been doing testing like in, was it Medelia the other day? Are there any plans that you know of to do it here?
There are not right now. Okay. I need to check on the National Guard status. They were very much a part of going into skilled nursing facilities and doing the testing, but they are backing out as of September 4th. They will no longer be doing the nursing home testing. There was a capacity issue. I don't know if the community, like what the opportunities are for the community testing as well.
I was just curious because we had that huge surge.
So that's one of my questions for our Friday coalition call.
Yeah.
I'll let you know what the answer is.
Now, if somebody goes up to Mayo or goes up to Mankato Clinic and gets tested, is that covered through your health insurance, or is that just a free test, or how? Because you hear different things. You hear the governor saying, we want everybody to be able to test and not have to worry about paying for it. So how is that? I know one morning I came down on Carver Road and there was a line all the way back to County Road 17, waiting to get tested. How is that being paid for? How is the state paying for that, or is that an insurance thing, or is that out of your own pocket?
All of the above. So insurances do pay for it, but it depends on your insurance. Some people are paying out of pocket for it. The National Guard events are free. Those they do not charge for. So they don't even ask.
And how much is a test?
I have heard that it's around $100 by the time there's an administration fee and the lab fee and the staff fee, but I think that could vary. I could check on that with our healthcare systems and get it more accurate, but I've heard around 100.
Okay.
I had a question. I heard yesterday that, Visit Eastridge is got at least a day turnaround on the tests. Have you heard that?
They are. The tests are actually being turned around incredibly quickly, within 24 hours, sometimes even more quickly. So that's been a really nice shift since early
that
on.
hasn't really been a problem here, I guess. I mean, like some places, and seem to be here anyway.
Yeah, no, the Mankato Clinic sends theirs right to Mayo, so most of ours in town are just being done right here. So there's a very quick turnaround time with people getting calls from their providers right away, so they don't have to wait 3 days to make a decision on what they can do and what they can't do.
Where are the most positive tests coming from? I mean, I'm hearing 20 to 27 years of age. Is this coming from bars and restaurants, or where are our tests being?
A combination of factors. So certainly turning that dial back and increasing all of our social activities, which included, bars and restaurants. And that's a younger population that tend to go there. And then you add some of the disease, some of the, just the natural spread of the disease. We're not stopping it anymore. We're slowing it down. The pandemic phase of containment is long past. We're mitigating at this point. So when you combine all of those factors, the younger age group popped up in our community. We certainly received a little bit of media attention for that. But there are additional, now as the cases continue, there's still that age group represented, but there's also people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s.
Should I just add a couple of things?
Please.
I do know that crossover from that younger population down in the southern states too, though, that it comes in waves, like Kelly said, but the 20s, if they're at a bar together, or I saw some picture on the national news of this beach scene, and there were like thousands of kids, like, as far closer than 6 feet. And so those pictures are kind of alarming. It gets into that population, and they're usually pretty good at staving off the virus. That's great for them. But if they go talk to mom and dad or grandma and grandpa, then another wave comes, and that's what's happening down south, I think, is that it's starting to infiltrate then back into that real vulnerable population or the underlying medical condition. And so I just say that partly for the community to say we really do have to be on guard about all those things, and that, I have some of those young adult type people in my family, and they seem like they don't, maybe take it as seriously, or they don't maybe take the precautions. And I think we need to strongly encourage them. I know I have. And then my only other comment was going to be about workforce, is that we've struggled, and I've been talking with Kelly and then talking with Bob recently, and he's certainly helped us out in some real ways here, even in this past week. But the interesting thing to all of you is that life goes on. And so some of our staff, they have family members not necessarily sick from COVID, but sick, or a mother or father that are passing away, or grandparents that pass away. That all happens, even like with our public health staff. And so they're pulled out of this crisis, really, to their own family crisis. And certainly the preparation for school, and that's another hot button issue that we just didn't mention, but we all know it's out there, which is what's going to happen with the schools. And that's going to be another big preparation, and we have a little time right now to think about that and contemplate different options about how that might go if they go back to school, if they go back to school part-time, or if they don't go back to school at all for a while. And that really affects our workforce too, as you can imagine. So I just wanted the board to be aware of that the real people that do this work, they're fully dedicated and putting in a lot of extra hours. I know Kelly at the top of that list, but there's also real life happens, so that's another factor. And I think that's just true for all of us. We're all going through it, and we all feel it, and then something pops in our family situation, all your attention goes to that, and it makes everything a little bit harder, actually. So we've just experienced a lot of that in public health, and Kelly talks about her bench strength hasn't been there at times, and I just wanted to make you aware of that. But Bob and I have talked about that, and I think we have a plan put together, so we're good.
Well, the question, you brought up schools. And being that we are on the forefront of this, you two are the local experts here. Has the school board, or has anybody come to talk to you about how they should open up the schools this fall?
You know, I'm aware of more of the national scene. Have you heard any local pieces at all, Kelly? You can certainly. I have not heard locally, Mr. Chair, about that issue, but I know nationally there's great debates, like a very hot topic right now about how that's going to go. And
Well, I'm concerned more about our schools, District 77
Right.
is
absolutely.
how have they come and talked? Have they come and trying to get a handle on how they should do this?
We've been in contact with District 77 and other schools in the county. They come to us, we help them with that technical piece. The Department of Health also hosts a weekly call for higher education and education for schools with guidance, because we really do follow the MDH and CDC's guidance, so we're all working together with that. And I know there's information coming. It's definitely not fast enough. I know there's a lot of teachers out there and a lot of educators wondering, how are we going to do our classes this fall?
Well, I'm sure a lot of parents are too.
And parents as well, right? Yeah. I still have one in school, so.
All right.
I think so much depends on what happens with the virus. I mean, and if you could say, well, it's going to be done on this date, you could plan better, but unfortunately, that's not going to happen. My son's at Loyola, and I know they've been doing many scenarios as to, what if.
Yeah, I think there's three. It could be all online, it could be a hybrid, it could be in person.
Yep.
And any combination of those three is really what they're talking about.
That's what you hear more of, I think, some kind of a hybrid, I would think. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank
you.
Really
Thanks.
eye-opening.
Really appreciate it.
We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate all your hard work.
Thanks.
You guys.
All right. Well, then we can jump right to our commissioners' reports. And I think I'll start with Colleen.
Me. On the 23rd, we had a work session. On the 25th, I'm on the Y board, and I just got appointed to the COVID response at the Y. So that's been
There we go.
interesting. Matt DeRose chairs it, so there's that connection with the county and the city. On the 26th, there was a CARES Act webinar talking about funding. Very interesting, and I think still trying to figure out, there's been a few of them, what's allowable, what's not. At the judicial work group later that day, and that evening I went to the Rally for Justice at Sibley Park, and they had a good turnout. On the 29th, I had the Finance and Intergovernmental Affairs group with NACO. On the 6th, I think many of us listened to the City Council's debate on masks. On the 7th, we had a work session. The 8th, we had department heads. Then we had Minnesota Transportation Alliance. And then I had the Blue Ribbon Commission that's talking about the report and how that's going to be rolled out. On the 10th, the South Central Clean Energy Council, the presentation was by YES, which is Youth and Ecosystems. Mankato West has a team, and there are some other teams in communities around us. And they work on one project a year, and Mankato West one was lighting at Mankato West. Then I had the Blue Ribbon Committee meeting that afternoon. And yesterday, we had the NACO Town Hall virtual meeting. That's it for me, sir.
All right, Kip.
After the last board meeting, we've had several work sessions.
Yep.
Vance and I have been in a couple budget discussions with some of the staff and the other elected officials. Mark and I were on a conference call with RCEF. They actually had the meeting in person, but Mark and I couldn't make it down that day, so we called in. Things are going fairly well there. They're getting more and more interest from some other counties and moving forward with trying to get some other counties on board since they have that match funding at this point. Had planning and zoning conference call, had a public hearing. There were several items on the agenda. They all went very well. It is very cumbersome trying to do those public hearings online, especially when you don't have the technology of the Zoom, because a lot of these people are out in the rural area and don't have the good connection, so we just do it by conference call. But the chair does a good job keeping everything in order, and we had good discussion. There was just a couple of projects that have been kind of floating around out there for a long time, so it was nice to see them get done, and we'll see those at the end of the month. Had a MRCI executive board meeting by conference call with Brian. They're still plugging away there. Their intention is to still get back into business. They're not going to take up nearly as much brick and mortar. They're going to do more on the job, on the go type help with the consumers that we have in that system. Brian was very optimistic about trying to get things up and running again. We'll be transitioning from more of the regular buses and bus routes to vans and trying to transport people around that way. So MRCI will still be here. It's going to look way different, but it's very exciting. Brian was very happy about some of the stuff he had to report. Obviously, financially, they're always looking for some extra money and trying to get things up and running again because they haven't gotten any of the funding from the Department of Health since they've been shut down, because if they don't provide the service, they don't get paid for it, which I just don't agree with that. I think they should at least try to funnel some of that funding down to them, because now all that money's still sitting somewhere and MRCI is not getting it and they can't do anything with it. So they're still working on trying to get that resolved, and hopefully can get some funding through that. And then Mark and I were on our MICA conference call, relatively short meeting, not a whole lot going on, but the crew up there seems to be doing a good job at this point. And that's my report, Mr. Chair.
All right, Will?
Okay. After our last board meeting, I was at the South Bend Township board meeting. Some land use issues there that we're working on. Of course, we mentioned the work sessions already. On the 25th, I met with George Leary again, talking about the land use issues in South Bend Township. On the 29th, had a PACE meeting that was online. Talked about moving forward with that. There's still some money to be loaned on that. And then on the 8th, I was fortunate enough to be at the Sheriff's Department range, where I qualified with the other retired deputy sheriffs and police officers from the area. The sheriff's office does a wonderful job with that. And yesterday I had the detox meeting, again online. The numbers are good there. They, in response to having a hard time getting workers, we've raised the salary of the workers there, and that has helped significantly to bring people in there to work. And we're back up to full capacity. We started out with half capacity, went to 3/4 capacity, and now we're at full capacity. So things are going well there.
All right, Mark?
Okay, well, let's see. After the 23rd, the work session, July 2nd, then, Kip and I did have our RCF, and as Kip said, it's moving along. See where that goes. Celebrated a safe 4th with legal fireworks. Legal, I said. Bought from the neighborhood Cub store. So, anyway.
Well, then they'd have to be legal.
Yeah, the guys, it seems Rapidan or something. I forget where the guy, the family is that does that. Then let's see, we had 7th, the work session. Let's see, the 8th was the department head meeting, and went to that, had that virtually. Then again, Kip and I with Micah on the 8th, and that point they were looking at when the session would actually be, and of course now we see they're in session, so see how that all ends up, and that really ends up brings it all up to date, Mr. Chair.
All right. Well, mine is pretty much like everyone else's. The work session on the 23rd after our board meeting. I decided to take a camping trip to the Black Hills on the 24th, but I was able to call in for a executive meeting for TDS on the 25th. So didn't know if I could get the right phone reception out in the Black Hills, but I did. Got back and had the county attorney budget meeting on the 30th. And of course, the 4th of July went, and I had no fireworks myself, but I heard enough of my my neighbor's
Neighbors.
illegal fireworks going up all around me.
Well, there's a lot of them out there
There are
too.
a lot of those around there. Of course, like a lot of us, I listened to the city council meeting on the 6th in reference to the mass. And then we had our work session on the 7th, department head meeting on the 8th. And then I had a TZD, Towards Zero Death meeting, South Central on the 9th. The call-in, all these were call-in. On yesterday, I had a Transportation Alliance Board, which was a call-in. And, well, I should say, we did, myself and Ryan did an interview last Friday with the TV station on the bonding. They were smart. As of yesterday morning, it aired and only showed Ryan. So they did a good job showing the best looking one of the two. But again, I had the membership town hall yesterday afternoon, listened to what's going on with NACO, and it comes to today. And I believe that's the end, isn't it, Bob?
It is, Mr. Chair.
Call for an adjournment.
So move.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against? It passes unanimously. Thank you.
Elaine, how did NACO turn out financially on the convention?